Hey, this is Nicole Johnson-Yan for All Israel News. And today I'm here with the CEO of Passages, Scott Phillips. Scott, it's good to talk to you again.
It's great to be with you, Nicole, as always.
I love your organization because you've got a couple approaches to really to Christian students to build up future Christian leaders. And also you have an Israel studies strategy as well. And I want you to talk about that. But I also want to mention the last time we spoke was almost a year ago, and we were not having the same conversation. Like today's probably going to be a more positive conversation. But last year, you were talking about how one of your groups was in Israel when the borders were shut for COVID.
Yes, absolutely. That was, I'm very glad that we are sitting under different circumstances this time. Yes, back in March of 2020, we had 200 students in Israel, and they had to leave 3 days early because the borders were closing. And then that just sparked, thousands of cancellations for the next 2 years.
Right. And when I spoke with you, I think you were up to about 8,000 students that you had brought to Israel over a short period of time. And then the goal was, there were going to be 10,000 by the end of the summer, but then the borders were shut in Israel for 15 months. So when I spoke with you last year, you hadn't yet brought a group back, but you had a few maybe last summer.
We did. We were able to, during the times that Israel's borders were open, we were able to squeeze 500 students in the country for about a 2-month period before they closed back in August, and had to cancel after that. About 100 students in August, and then another 700 in the winter. So, but thank God that it's looking brighter now.
So what's happening? Tell us about this summer, where the borders, by the way, if anybody wants to come to Israel, this is June 30th, 2022. There is not even a requirement for a corona test. I think you just get in. There's only a form you fill out, but otherwise all open and free. Let's pray it stays that way. So what's your situation this summer?
Yeah, so we were actually able to restart our trips to Israel for Christian students back in March during spring break. We brought in a couple hundred students during the spring. This year, it's going to be almost 700, or this summer, almost 700. So we're actually almost hitting that 9,000 mark, which we're very grateful for. 9,000 college students since 2015. So this summer, we've got a lot of different types of groups in Israel. We have right now on the ground an African-American Leadership Initiative group in partnership with the Phillips project. And we have seminaries on the ground. We've got, just a wide array of schools and initiatives happening right now in Israel.
Well, that's fantastic. And what's been the reaction of the students knowing that they could finally take this trip?
Oh, there's been some that have been waiting for so long. That some of these partners, we work with, different universities, partner schools, partner organizations. And, these students have been itching to get into Israel for a long time. And so, I was on the ground just about 3 weeks ago and was able to run into 3 buses of students all in one place there with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre together. And I just got to speak to them all. That's about 120 students right in front of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and just the joy on their face to just be in Israel, and the gratefulness that they had for being able to be in Israel was really a moving moment. It was a great reminder of why we do what we do.
What are they going to learn when they come here? Like, what's the program and what's the approach?
Sure. Really, it follows Passage's mission, which is number one, help students discover the roots of their faith. For young people to be able to tangibly feel something, especially this younger generation, which is an amazing generation. They want to feel, they want to touch, they want something authentic. They want to make their faith their own. And for us to be able to take them to the birthplace of Christianity, where their spiritual roots as Christians exists, it really helps give them that spiritual identity. It helps really solidify their faith, and it helps, them make their faith their own. And so that's number one. And so, when it comes to that, they visit the Jewish and Christian biblical sites from the Old Testament, the New Testament, anything from, of course, the Sea of Galilee to Jerusalem. One of my favorite things that we do a lot of times is we start with that Old Testament narrative in Jerusalem. We take them to the Temple Mount. We talk about Abraham. Then we go to the city of David, talk about King David, the kings, the prophets, and they're sitting on the southern steps, and that story is just playing out right in front of them. They're actually able to touch these stones and hear this story, and ultimately see how it leads to Jesus, because the next day or a few days afterwards, they'll walk the steps that Jesus walked during Passion Week, and they'll be able to walk from the Garden of Gethsemane through the Via Dolorosa, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Garden Tomb, and really put all the pieces of the Bible together. So that's powerful. And then I think, the second piece of our mission is Encounter Israel. We want to introduce these young people to modern Israel. They hear a lot of things in the news or on campus about Israel, but they have an opportunity to hear from Israelis, Israeli Jews, Palestinians, Israeli Arabs, Christians, Muslims, and they're able to hear different perspectives, and their world just, expands. And so really our goal there, going from the borders of, the Syrian-Israeli border to the Gaza border to Yad Vashem, to Bethlehem, even, Area A, they're able to really hopefully come back home and build bridges of friendship with Israel and the Jewish community back home, because, as we know, anti-Semitism is very, a lot of, it's a problem here in the United States. And so these are all things that they learn on the trip. It's 9 days and it's fast paced.
And you send them back as ambassadors to their campuses.
That's right. That's exactly right. Depending on what kind of campus they come from, sometimes if we've got students that are on a campus where there's Jewish students, we'll work with our good friends at Hillel International or other Jewish or pro-Israel partners on campuses, and really work to develop those relationships between our Christian students and the Jewish students on campus. Really, the goal there is, to let the Jewish students know that they're not alone. In a time like this where anti-Semitism is on the rise, they're not alone. And of course, to stand up for Israel on campus, that's really important as well. So they have, regardless of the campus they're on, we have campus ambassadors that are students, alumni, and they're really our representatives on the campus, and they're able to put together 3 events every semester, and really keep that momentum going, keep that community going back home.
Well, that's awesome. Why is this important for the future of the church, especially in America, to invest in these students, invest in these specific trips?
Well, I think it's really twofold, just like our mission really is twofold, but they interconnect very closely. Number one, statistics are showing that less and less Gen Z, younger generations are having, they have much, 4% of them ascribe to a biblical worldview. 25% of these students, when they go to camp, when they go to college, maybe they were raised in a Christian home, maybe they came to faith at an early age or in high school, but they go to college, and many times they put their faith on the shelf. And so this is really the challenge for the church. And we believe that helping students discover the roots of their faith, that their faith goes back thousands of years, even before Jesus, right? Like there was something that led to Jesus, and Jesus, was not born in a vacuum. He was born in the land of Israel. And so for them to understand that, we believe that can really bring revival, help bring revival, and all the other amazing ministries out there doing amazing work. We believe we can be a big part of that too. And then I think the second thing is we see a diminution in support of Israel with the younger generation. That those numbers are sliding, and I know All Israel News has written a lot about this. And those numbers are sliding, and support for Israel is neutralizing among a younger generation, particularly of evangelicals. And it's so important, that Christians, we have such a unique opportunity to stand with Israel, to stand with the Jewish people in a time where Israel and the Jewish community need us. And really, it's for such a time as this. And so it's so important that a new generation support may look different than an older generation support of Israel. And that's okay. That's good. It's a new generation, so has different characteristics, and so we're here to really help build those bridges of friendship.
That's really important. As we discussed before, this is a complicated country, and but I believe that this generation can understand it. That this is for such a time as this, they will understand also the complications of Israel and coming from their own experiences as well. But that's great. I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your sharing, and thank you for your time. This is awesome.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Nicole.